All right. I'm ready to go. You all set? Cool. All right. All right. Well, thanks everyone for coming to my talk. I appreciate that. My talk, I sort of titled here, Markets and Malware, which is a little generic. But what I want to go into is sort of why I take this approach, which is very much a talk on threat intelligence. And my view of threat intelligence is that it should be intelligence. There's a lot of marketing out there. Threat intelligence just hashes, domains, IPs. It's just data. Real threat intelligence is trying to understand who the adversaries are, what their tools, tactics, and procedures are. It is, however, really hard to study the bad guys directly. They don't really volunteer a whole lot of information. You can't drop by, send them a survey, or any of these kind of things. So, history and economics actually can provide a framework to model their behavior. We can actually look at other criminal organizations, other flat-out laws of economics, how things work, and try and apply them. So, one thing we can kind of track is try and keep track of just how sophisticated the bad guys are. Now, this isn't in any way controversial to say the bad guys are becoming more sophisticated. I'm sure you've heard it in every bloody vendor presentation that stops by. But we can actually start to track that, to quantify it, because we know how economies develop, we know how firms developed, and the two key metrics to how an economy overall develops is labor specialization, which is massive, right? It's the reason we're all here. It's the reason we are rich, right? Why we've been lifted out of poverty. If you don't think you're rich, you learn some. It's brilliant how rich we are, right? Labor specialization is a huge part of that. None of us would be here today if we had to spend all day looking for food. And all of this happens because we specialize, but even from that point on, we also see it in malware, and we can start to point to this increase in specialization in malware. That's pretty well understood. But what's also required is financial trust, which is sort of a vague term, and it's not necessarily financial. Maybe economic trust is a better one, but it means that I have to be able to engage with you. I'll be able to trade with you, you money, get a product from you, and trust you. The first thing I did when I got here was get a Bloody Mary. The people making it I've never met before. They're not my family. There's no deeply compelling biological reason they have, say, not to poison me. I didn't worry about that at all when I step up there because there's this financial trust built into the system. And that required to say exchange with people you don't know very well, and it's also been instrumental in developing digital economies, and that will include the black market ones, right? If they're not following me, eBay would have never picked up if it weren't for PayPal. Right? If you remember back that long, like eBay started up, and people were like, "You're on your mind. You're just going to send money to a stranger." Right? And there's the same challenge that all markets face, in particular black markets. So, let's start with ransomware. Try and learn as much as possible. I just use Google image search for a lot of this stuff. Apparently, I haven't seen the movie. I don't know that I want to now because I'm in love with this picture, and I don't want to know the context behind it. That's much more fun without knowing that. But I wanted to take a look at, okay, well, outside of ransomware, outside of this new black, digital economy, how did it work before that? How does actually kidnapping and ransoming people work, and what can we learn about that? Well, one of the reasons we study ransomware is because it's not going anywhere. All the stats on how it's a really big deal in 2019 for ransomware. Who wants to bet on whether or not ransomware is going to be around in 2020, right? There's no question because they're making a bunch of money doing it. And it's enough money to the point where you'd also like to stop and think, I'd like some more money. And the way you often do that is simply you can think like, okay, I need to produce more, I need to sell more, I need to get it out there, more malware, right? More does not always mean more money. If you produce a whole lot more of something, the price might go down. That doesn't necessarily mean your profit goes up. So one of the key ways a new business will look to increase profit directly is called price discrimination. And this is a simple economic term, which is some of you are willing to pay more than others, and I'd like to find that out, and I'd like to be able to charge you more. So if we can start to segment people, if we can start to learn about our market, different niches, then we can actually charge people different prices prices. Now, that may sound complicated. You see it every day. Let's go through some examples. We can charge people different prices based on age. Senior discounts are prevalent everywhere, and older people are not as likely to pay as much money. So if we have a special senior discount, what we're saying is you get a different price. We just call it a senior discount, right? That's pretty prevalent. You can carve up by age group. What's another age group that gets a special discount? Students, right? Obviously, this is college students. Everyone can tell, right? MacBooks, upper middle class, diversity. Clearly college students. Right off some college's website. We have the exact same products. The pink one. Right, so this is... What does that mean? I think I was hitting the button. That's on me. This is actually called the pink tax. It's not a tax in any way, shape, or form. There they are, sitting right next to each other. If you feel the need that your stool softener needs to be pink, you can pay $1 more for it. But that's happening all over the place. Same with these razors, exact same product, but in this case, put it, in a different aisle, make it pink, and you can charge more for it. That was bad price discrimination, right? Here's some good price discrimination by gender we're all okay with. We can charge lower price or just give free drinks for ladies' night, right? There's all different ways to do it. Some people might be less willing to pay, so we can have coupons out there. Some will be willing to spend the time to clip them, some won't. Airline seats have actually experimented with this. So the best seats, do they go to our most loyal customers, or should we auction them off? Auctioning them off actually gets you a higher profit at that point in time, but maybe you'd rather build loyalty. Maybe you'd rather reward people who have been flying your airline for a long time, right? There's all different ways of doing that. So you have all these people out here, and I'd like to know which ones are willing to pay more than others. And that's every business, right? So if I can determine that, then I'm going to make everything I'm doing is going to be more profitable. And it's the same for ransomware. So, say your ransomware is a commodity ransomware, you just send it everywhere, and now you're just, you're encrypting grandma's photos. So, is grandma going to pay more money to get her photos back than, say, if you were to encrypt the medical records of a hospital? That, now you can actually get in real price discrimination. Some of these people are going to pay more to get their files back than others. If we move from ransomware to a bit more general, I want to learn from what was happening before ransomware even existed. Because people have been doing ransom for a whole lot longer. And we've seen that ransomware is incredibly profitable. It turns out, so is kidnapping people for ransom. So here's a quote: "Kidnapping hostages is an easy spoil, which I may describe as a profitable trade and a precious treasure." That's from the leader of Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula. And was actually able to find a whole bunch of data on this, a lot from this firm Control Risks, which actually does kidnapping insurance and consulting. They'll actually negotiate with the kidnappers. So this is their business. This is their business, help negotiate, get them back safely, and then if you buy kidnapping insurance, they'll work with that firm. So they have, it turns out, a great deal of data on how this actually goes down. So they actually resolved more than 2,300 cases in 138 countries. This is prevalent. This is happening. If you go to the crime statistics, there's nothing really in there because they don't really report them as much. But these guys are being hired out on the regular to deal with ransoms. All right. Now, kidnapping people can be hard. Right. First one is you have to find who is it going to be, right? And we've seen the same problem with ransomware. There's a big difference between putting it out there at a watering hole and just anyone comes by, or do we try and find someone more specific, right? I've actually seen a lot of established kidnappers, the rebel group in Colombia. They're on the internet researching your company. If you've got people traveling through their area, they'll know what company you are, they'll know how much revenue you have in general, and they set their ransom based on that information. Right. And once you've got a victim, you got to put place, right? Which is challenging in and of itself. Obviously not a problem that ransomware has. They already found the place. It's your computer. So they actually don't have. Does this work? I don't actually know how to put this on. Is this picking it up? Do I look like Madonna? Oh my God, this feels ridiculous on my head. This isn't the right way. All right. Oh my ears. How about that? Is this less ridiculous?
Yeah.
Okay. Sometimes I might have been. It was still kind of cutting in and out. All right. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Great. All right. So we got to find a place and stash a victim, which is, can be easier for some than others. And it actually depends a lot on how much power you have in the region and how much influence you can exert over people. Then how much are they going to pay? Right? So we've sort of talked about this with ransomware, but some victims will pay more than others. Some have more money than others. And we'll see this vary across kidnappers significantly. So there on the Nile Delta, the kidnappers work all the time. They grab you, they turn around, they ask for 10 grand every time because they don't have a lot of time, right? Eventually, the cops will be like, "Oh God, there's another kidnapping. All right, it's been 3 days. All right, I'll go get them." Right? So if I turn around like 2 days, they're fine. So they're not going to try and find out who you are, do a lot of research. It's just, I got you 10 grand every time. Whereas, say the rebel group in Colombia I mentioned, a lot more research, and that's going to vary significantly in what they're going to charge. Now, third, why would you trust these people? You want to pay a ransom? They're criminals. Are they going to release the hostage? Are they going to demand more money later? Like, how is this going to go? Right? If you're a kidnapper, do you want to, okay, I'm going to take your ransom money. Am I sure there's not a tracking device in there, that you're not a cop? None of these people trust each other. How do you pay? This is a pretty significant challenge. Like, how are we actually going to pay? We have to figure out, like, okay, how are we going to do it and not track each other, and of course, no funny business. A lot of this has been taken care of in the ransomware field, though, thanks to Bitcoin. We sort of have a way that they prefer to conduct these transactions. And once you get the ransom, should you let the hostage go? They might be able to identify you. Lead the cops back to your lair. Maybe better off if they don't get to talk to anybody. Right? So, a lot of things can go wrong. You have to worry about whether you're going to get a ringer, whether there was actually a victim in the first place, or whose toe that was in the first place. But the fact of the matter is, most kidnappings end with the hostages being safely returned. The vast majority of them. Why? That's baffling. There's no reason for people to trust each other for this to work, but it does. And there's sort of two possible reasons we can look to. One is reputational solutions, and the second is extra legal governance. So the kind of rules, standards that have for this industry, outside of the law, it's literally a black market. Back to the reputation, here's survival expert Larry Bush is describing the cartel kidnappers in Mexico. And he says the criminal groups carrying out these kidnappings are successful because they have a reputation for bargaining in good faith. They have built credibility. If the ransom is paid, the hostage is released. These are trustworthy criminals. Is literally what he's saying, right? And I've talked about it before. If you can convince people, hey, don't mess with me, they'll listen. So, but these reputational solutions rely on repeated interactions and like a good flow of information, which isn't always the case with malware, right? Not everybody is out there to build a reputation or say I'm so and so or I'm this group. Though we do kind of see that with ransomware. Ransomware is often branded. So how common it really becomes seems to influence just how smooth this entire process is, all the way to where you have cultures where hostage taking is actually entirely common, like a lot of the tribal regions in Yemen. Their hostages actually have the social status of a guest. They aren't tied to a chair or like with a hood over their head. They're literally like, yeah, we got you. All right, help yourself to the kitchen, right? You're our guest. Or like Game of Thrones, they got each other's kids, right? They're literally like hostages, but they're really well taken care of. But hostage taking as a way to bargain with each other and to negotiate has been a part of their culture for over hundreds, if not thousands of years. So it's wildly different there. So as compared to where maybe kidnapping has only recently become a problem, that's actually far more likely to be a violent situation. Can malware authors build a reputation? It's not entirely clear. Some are trying. We do see branded malware. You can Google, like when you get ransomware, they'll sometimes sign it, right? And then you'll be able to Google that and find out more about it. You can find out whether they're getting their files back when they pay. Though it's not always clear as a criminal that you want to be all that well known, right? So I don't know how much that affects it. So this governance structures might be a way to look at what it takes to be a successful ransomware. And what I mean by extra-legal governance is not the law, but some sort of standards, like we have here at BSides Cleveland, right? Don't be a dick, stay hydrated. These are not official rules. No one's the cops aren't going to call if they get broken, but you might be asked to leave, right? So creating rules, disseminating information, evaluating their performance, and spotting and calling out breaches of these protocols are really what we'll see as sort of this extra-legal governance. And I do think we see a little bit of that coming from ransomware. Ransomware people are spending a lot of their time, disseminating information. If you don't understand cryptography, they will explain it to you. Sometimes it's in the ransom note. Like, no, you're not getting your files back. let me tell you about how public-private key works. Here's a Wikipedia entry. You're not getting your files back. And by the way, we're going to pay with cryptocurrency. Never heard of Bitcoin? No problem. I will walk you through setting up a wallet. Don't sweat it. We're going to make this easy for you, right? So they're really setting up these kind of standards. Now, in the real world, we can see a lot of that taking place with kidnappers as well. So the Chandler couple were actually kidnapped off the Somali coast. They were taken off their yacht, and they were ransomed for $3 million. Here's the problem. They did not have $3 million. They pulled that number out of thin air. It was a bad number. There was never going to be a situation where the Chandlers could come up with $3 million. And they held on to them. They're like, give us $3 million. They're like, I still don't have it. Right? Eventually, you can bully people, you can take over the boat, but they didn't have the money. So after a while, the tribal elders actually went to the kidnappers and were like, knock it off. Let these people go. This is getting embarrassing for the rest of us. So knock it off, right? And they were like, oh. I actually see a lot of that because, frankly, with the Somali pirates, they are jacking some enormous ships. Right? These are not fly-by-night criminal organizations. This is not, I'm going to hide the loot until I can fence it. You can't hide these ships. They are massive. They literally all have transponders broadcasting where they are at any given time. And in fact, they track that data once they get the ship, get the ship back and everything's okay. They watch it. They just go take it down, park it outside their village. No big deal. Right? So it's not like they're secret criminals. Everyone in their village knows they're doing it. They're kind of okay with it, and they exist in this governance structure. And it turns out, if you embarrass the elders, you might also get your hand slapped for it. So we do see some of these actually legal governance. So what are the results? So we have this situation where people are building a career kidnapping people. And we also have people building a career helping people negotiate for the kidnappers back. Well, getting that data from Control of Risk, the firm that specializes in a lot of this, 85.5% of the crisis is resolved by them. Their hostages were safely returned by their kidnappers. 6% of hostages were rescued. 6% managed to escape. And only 2.5% of those cases resulted in the death of a hostage. And they actually say the majority of those were botched escape attempts. Right. So as an example, what if we're not allowed to develop solutions? The UN forbids, and domestic law as well, completely forbids negotiating and trading money with terrorists. So, if you're negotiating with Somali pirates, with drug cartels, does that look any different than if you're kidnapped by a terrorist organization? Oh my God, yes. Very, very different. The mortality rates, far worse. And law enforcement, that's where it has a spotty record. Their ability to get involved is incredibly limited, because frankly, if you're doing kidnapping for a living, a law enforcement area, probably not great. A lot like the internet. But also, what we see is that the market for kidnapping can be somewhat competitive. An interesting trick of markets is that competitive markets are a little more dynamic. They're more productive. And that's great if you're producing hamburgers, because that means we all get more hamburgers for cheaper prices. If you're producing crime, we don't actually want more of it. We'd like less. So we end up in this weird situation where we're actually better off if crime is run by a monopoly. Organized crime is often that. It's often far more organized. And it usually means you got a lot less of it. Right? So this is the number of kidnappings observed over time in Medellin. Now, something happens in 1990. Anyone remember what it was? They cracked down and arrested Escobar. And that's where we get a giant spike in kidnappings, because it created a huge vacuum where he was no longer running the show, and now other people are competing for it, and it does dive a bit back down after the power vacuum is like, oh my god. But it was like continuously rising after that. Right? In this one sense, they were doing all right with Escobar. Right? So once you see a lot of these organizations grow, they actually become less violent. And I'll come back to that. But this is actually a case where economic theory will point out that when you have a monopoly of something, you get less of that something being produced. And in terms of crime, that's actually a good thing. Right? So we actually have to be very careful when we start talking about like policy analysis, or where do we should start doing takedowns or going after the bad guys. Well, there is a significant cost benefit to taking down some of these bad actors. Because if they're running the show, creating a power vacuum can actually make things worse for a while. And actually think back to like how much ransomware we've seen over time. I think the most we've seen is probably when things were getting the craziest, right? When we were really flooded with new kinds of ransomware all the time. That's when we saw, like, what was the Saw themed ones? Was it called Saw? Or what was that dumb puppet's name? Jigsaw ransomware. That's it. So that was they weren't that cool about it. Right? But I'm going to delete a file every hour until you give me your files back, right? Well, it's calmed down a lot since then. We're actually seeing the market segmented up, and I'll come back to that when we get into the case examples, because they're really driving into price discrimination and segmenting the market. Well, now, they've really cooled off a lot. A lot of ransomware now is like, look, I'll tell you about Bitcoin, I'll tell you how to pay, and when you get around to it, I'll decrypt your files. No big deal. You know where I'm at. You know how to find me. They're not trying to scare you. Now they're kind of in charge, right? They're getting nicer. I forgot the name. But there's one that actually lets you upload up to 3 files, and it will decrypt them just to show you they can. Because they're trustworthy criminals. And that's how you build a successful criminal environment. It's not, you could literally, I'm a bad person, but I'm predictable. Right? So the scale matters. The scale matters enormously, right? Because you don't actually see giant kidnapping organizations in the same sense that I can make water hotter. Criminal organizations or kidnapping organizations can become bigger, but then they shift, right? I can make water hotter, but eventually it turns into a gas. There are no giant kidnapping enterprises, because once you get to a certain size, you're kidnapping a bunch of people. It's really just like, you know what would be easier for my kidnapping business? If I just didn't kidnap you. Right? We're doing this thing, I kidnap you, you pay me. How about we just take out the middle step and you just pay me? Right? So there are no giant kidnapping enterprises, because at a certain size, other way. Large kidnapping organizations become protection rackets. Right? If I take out the middle step and it's just, hey, nice bar you got here, shame if something happened to it, I'm backing up because, like, hey, remember when I kidnapped people? Like, I'm serious. Pay me the money. Large protection rackets, you don't really see them either, because at a certain point they become rebel groups, and large rebel groups become governments. So if I can threaten you to kidnap, it just saves me the trouble of having to kidnap you. Right? So it's just like wink, wink, nod, nod. You know I will. So just do your, and we'll get nicer, right? You get to the point where like, hey, we're going to come around once a month and collect an envelope, or you can get like really sophisticated to the point where people just let you take it out of your paycheck and file some paperwork every April 15th. And look, just do it. I could kidnap you if you don't, but let's just skip that step. So ransomware growth isn't really inhibited in that way. It's not inhibited by geography, right? Growth for the criminal organization is absolutely limited by geography. You have to control a little area. This is my area, and you know that I'm serious, and that's why you'll just pay me, right? Well, we don't really have geography in the internet. So that's not going to be a bound. That's not going to stop them from growing, which seems to be a big part of what stops kidnapping gangs from growing in the first place. But I do think it begs the question, what does limit ransomware growth? Well, we're getting a case study. Oops, I was going to, we'll come back to that anyway. So, a couple of examples of people that are doing this for a living, some different organizations, right? One of the threat actors we track, we call Grim Spider, they're known for the Ryuk ransomware. There's the Ryuk ransom note, right? So again, they have a reputation because they're the ones that name themselves. They have a signature. No system is safe, right? Nice files you got here. It's a shame if something happened to them. By the way, we're in control here. Don't think about going to the authorities. Don't try and fix it. Don't try and mess with your files. Right? I am the captain now. Grim Spider is actually a unit of Withered Spider, which is known for TrickBot, which I'm actually going to come back to. Because they're fairly sophisticated. And if we analyze their malware, it's nice to be able to label them because it's pretty significant. If I can actually come back and say, like, look, we identified the malware, I've identified a bunch of related samples, we can pull the IOCs, but more importantly, real threat intel, here's the hybrid analysis results. If you're into threat hunting, we can always go through like behavioral results later. I can share the links. Maybe that's anyway. Yeah, so we can start to identify their behavior and block and everything, but what's interesting there is they are starting to target more. They've got the TrickBot network to see who they're going after, right? So it's not grab whoever and demand the same fee, which is what we saw in commodity ransomware when it first came out. I don't know who you are. I don't know what your files are, but if you want them back, you got to pay X number, whatever it is. We're actually see a lot of differentiation from them, or say from Indrik Spider, who make the BitPaymer ransomware. They also make their own botnet. So talk about sophisticated economies. They have their own distribution network because they made the Dridex botnet. So it's not, okay, throw the ransomware out there and see where it lands. I don't know where. It's, well, I already got my malware in a bunch of people's systems. How about I go and look to see where I should put my ransomware? And that's exactly what these guys do, right? They've already got control of your box through the botnet. Now they take a look. And back to the example I gave before, they're not interested in grandma's photos. They kicked off that BitPaymer ransomware by infecting hospitals. Specifically went after them because they knew they could charge them more. Right? Or, who's the next guy? Take Pinchy Spider. For the Gan Crab malware. They started out somewhat commodity, and then in February, or this past February, really moved into targeting customers as well, directly. And you could see them further specialize their entire business by going out for SQL servers in May. Got themselves a pretty good vulnerability and went after that somewhat exclusively for a while, or were getting distributed through the Taurus loader. But they really started to double down on targeting their customers. Right? How do I charge a higher ransom? And so now it's like, well, I don't want to get into any system. I want to figure it out. And so now it's moving into targeting. And when ransomware moves into big game hunting, which is, okay, who are these people? How much do they like their files? How much can I charge them to get them back? Well, we have to start doing a little reconnaissance, lateral movement, and then we start seeing these threat actors go after Active Directory as well. Because now I need to find out where I am, what the system is, and then take control of it to really get to the files that you're really going to want back. And then they moved to an affiliate model. They got bored with that. Anybody do pen testing? All right. Mapping out an environment, doing the reconnaissance, taking over Active Directory. How long does that take? What if you could outsource it? GanCrab went to an affiliate model. Their problem wasn't just mapping it out. It was, maybe depending on the best example, because you sort of know your target ahead of time. They start with like a spam botnet, right? Spam everyone, and then you get the shell, and you're like, okay, who are these people? I have no idea who they are. What company it is? Is it a company? Is it your grandma? Let's go figure that out. And then sometimes you find out, oh my God, it's someone's grandma. She's not going to pay anything, and we got to move on to the next one, right? So, what if we outsource that? And they went to an affiliate model that says, look, we've got some badass ransomware. And if we target the right people, we'll make a bunch of money. So why don't you go find the juicy target, bring it to us, and we'll give you a special version of our ransomware, and we'll split the profits. And it wasn't even split. The people that brought it in, the affiliates, they got a bigger chunk, right? So now it's sit back and let it roll in. And this is huge. If you follow like business or well, affiliate marketing is a huge buzzword. They're catching up really, really fast in their business models now, right? And here's another one. They announced their retirement. I don't know if and you can kind of question why, but a part of the retirement, they I guess, maybe they just have a realistic view that it's not going to last forever. All good things come to an end. This quote is from Pinchy Spider. It's not a cliche. It's literally in the note they released to the public, saying like, we're out. Right? Now maybe they are. Maybe they're good. Maybe they are afraid of getting caught someday or going to jail, and maybe it's just time to hit an island and chill out for a while. Based on the kind of malware analysis, it's almost certainly like somewhere in Eastern Europe, sort of second world country, where the $150 million they were making a year probably goes a long way. Part of that note also showed that they made $2 billion for their affiliate partners. That is some really modern marketing. Although, I don't know if I can call it marketing if it's kind of like your peace out note. Like we were wildly successful, but now, I'm kind of done. But it does kind of raise the question like, okay, are they serious? Right? That's a lot of money. I just walk away from that, right? And I don't know if it was one person, if it was a team. Does everybody on the team want to retire? Are they going to go to an island? How long is the money going to last on that island? A year from now, are they going to be thinking like, you know what was great? The time I made that $150 million a year sharing software. That was pretty nice. So are we going to see him again? This is a rough prediction. I don't know. We might not. But what ruins the growth of ransomware? I really think part of it is that, a reputation is great. If you're like, I'm in affiliate marketing, you bring me your targets, you know you're going to get paid. You want a reputation to do that. But at a certain point, I don't know what the point is, but at a certain point, law enforcement is going to start getting interested, right? So I want a reputation with, I don't know, the public's maybe too broad. Maybe you want to break that down. Maybe you actually want to build a black market reputation. And I think this is where we can start to see the bad guys move. Is we're going to see, if I'm right, in how this market would splinter in order to build itself up effectively, is you need to find a way to build a reputation with the people that will join your affiliate program, but not with everybody else who, say, might tell the FBI about you. So, because if we're growing with the public, well then, I don't know the shape of the curve, but a rough guess, right? At a certain point, law enforcement's going to care, and then it might turn into a problem. And maybe you just take your $150 million and head to an island. Or maybe you think, I'm actually so good at this, why don't I just change my name, show everyone I'm still good at this, and build that reputation back up? This might be a dynamic process. If you can get a reputation up here pretty quickly, maybe you just change your name, right? That's an idea. There's not going to be a way to prove this probably for years or whatever, but we have seen activity from the GAN-CREB malware drop, but it hasn't hit zero. We're all certainly telling people, like, no, we're out. Like, you have X number of days, and we're just deleting the keys, and you're not getting your stuff back, right? Because they're really trying to at least convince somebody that they are out of that business. But we'll see. Maybe they just start a new one, and frankly, there's some new malware or some new ransomware out there that shares a lot of tools, tactics, and procedures with GAN-CREB. But it's a little early to say whether it's the same people or not. So they're really driving that you can get a whole lot more money if you can get to the right places, right? If I can get onto the right systems, if I can encrypt the right files, then I've got a whole lot more control over what we're doing. Now, what we're really looking at is some significant supply chain management. And this is exactly what we're seeing in malware as well. So very, very fast history here. You go back in time far enough, the supply chain was you walk down the village to the blacksmith and say, here's what I want you to make, and then he makes it. Well, they only got a little more complicated. We started inventing some long round change, right? Marco Polo here goes to Asia to get spices, silk, only super high-end luxury goods, because that's a long-ass trip, and we can only carry so much. 18th century gets shipping, and now we're really starting to get international trade of the first kind. Does anybody know the first internationally produced good? What? Rum. All the different factors were from all over the place. They imported, they imported their labor. The original sugar crop, once they had the sugar crop, the molasses went to New England to be distilled. That was shipped from all over, right? So it was the first truly international production of many kinds. And it was only because they had shipping that could move things around. For the most part, we also saw it took off when we started building capital beyond that. Beyond transportation, we also see things like cotton industry was one of the first to take off as a part of the Industrial Revolution, largely because of things like the shuttle loom, the spinning jenny, and the cotton mill here, where we really have labor being supplemented by capital for the first time, which is all that people do when they write malware. Right? Like, code is capital. Right? It makes you better. It makes you faster. You are automating things, right? Which is the same thing that the robots and devices are doing. So now, for the first time, it was economical to make cotton in Great Britain. Before that, not only was it not economical, it was downright unpatriotic. Right? Because all the cotton before that was made in India. And you can't have that. Foreign goods are bad. So there's literally laws in the book so that like civil servants and corpses were not allowed to wear cotton. Had to wear wool. Good English people wear wool, right? And all the Indian people making cotton were taking their jobs, right? Which just goes to show there's absolutely nothing new in politics. That's why it's so boring. All right. So, Industrial Revolution is also so we get transportation, but poor communication technology. That didn't really change for the longest time. It improved because transportation, but it was still carrying letters. You were carrying them faster and farther because now it was on a ship, but communication itself didn't change a whole lot then. So, production is centralized at major transportation hubs because you can't call someone up on the phone. Like, hey, how many did you want? Right? What was that supposed to look like? What were the measurements on that thing? No. We all kind of have to be in the same place to make that happen. And then Fortis production lines are really the standard. And then by extension, mass manufacturing of goods becomes standard. And because we all have to be in the same place, vertical integration sort of happens around these industries. So we get, as a sign of the times, Henry Ford saying any customer can have any car painted any color they want, so long as it's black, right? Because if that's all you're doing is mass production, then I don't give a shit about what color it is. This is what we're doing. We're doing this all day, every day. That's how we're getting it. Same with commodity malware. Those first pieces of ransomware didn't know who they were infecting. They didn't know what was going on, how it was going to spread. They didn't have different prices. It was just, let's see what happens and what's going on there. And it's the same with what we'll often call commodity malware. It's the same as a commodity good. It's just throw it out there and see what happens. The next big advancement post-war was containerization, which is we are going to make everything we ship the same size and same types of boxes, and we're going to put them in containers that are all the same size so that ships can get them off very easy. The same containers can then go onto ships. They can take them right off, put it on a truck, put it on a train, and now we can streamline the entire process of moving all the things, right? And actually, and then also like reduce crime. Somewhat. Some people know how to steal from them. Not entirely. But moving things into containers allowed for the next big advancement in this sort of supply chain, which is why we see miracles in an economic sense. If you track economic growth, if you care about reducing poverty, miracles like Singapore and Hong Kong, because they were the first to jump on board wholeheartedly, right? Because they were just getting started. So they built their ports around the idea of moving containers. They didn't have to retrofit the old ports that have been there for hundreds of years to it. Here's another shot from the back. So same cranes up there in the corner, but just stacks and stacks of these containers. Every good in different boxes, all packed into these ones. Standard. So now we're moving them through different ports, putting them on trains, putting them on trucks, and getting everything out there. So all that's happening faster. Communication doesn't really change until the 90s, when long-distance communication gets affordable, and of course the internet happens for a while. And now we can talk to anybody anytime, negotiate a price, specify our requirements. And at this point, the supply chain stops being a chain and becomes more of a net. The business texts use cloud, but isn't that term overused? So let's say net. Because now we can talk to anyone, we can move data around, we can talk to our customers, and we can start to get a bit more niche. Right? So now I can reach out. It's not every car is painted black because fuck you, I'm Henry Ford. It's I can jump on Etsy and get any damn niche product I can dream of. And we're seeing similar trends in malware, only a whole lot faster because we've kind of built this before, and then they were never held back by communication, right? The Industrial Revolution always had a communication problem. Malware never did. They were born on the internet. There are no holdbacks in communications. So, let's talk about Mummy Spider here, who's best known for distributing the Emotet malware. Mummy Spider starts out as a banking Trojan. So it gets on, it brute force passwords, it spreads laterally, it has a spam module built in to spread itself, but then it was to get the banking passwords so it can take the banking passwords and start to steal your money. Well, it's a lot of work. You gotta get the malware out there, and then once you got banking passwords, it's not like that directly turns into money in your bank account. You gotta find a way to get that money out, to launder it, to make sure it's not going to get traced back to you. So, maybe we just skip that step. Or outsource it. So, Emotet is focused entirely on the delivery now. They're no longer a banking Trojan. You hire Emotet out to deliver your banking Trojan, or your rat, or whatever it is you want out there. Crypto miners, whatever you want distributed, they'll deliver it for you. They are entirely specialized on the delivery of malware. You can rent it out. So if you want a specific payload, to a specific part of the globe, you'll get that as well, right? If you're ever doing malware reverse engineering or any kind of basic sandboxing, one thing to be aware of is that Emotet responds very, very differently depending on where it determines where in the world it is. Right? Which I think is part of one to do price discrimination and break out your segments and say, oh, you want to target certain people? Great, I got you. It's going to cost a little more. also to let people cover their backs. You're also reducing the cost to your customers. Because frankly, for a lot of people writing malware out there, it's really, really nice if you can infect everyone except, say, the country where I live. Right? And we've certainly seen a lot of this. The big Russian botnets, a lot of them don't run if your keyboard's in Cyrillic. Or if they determine that they're in Russia. Now, why is that? Maybe it's just patriotism. Love for their fellow countrymen. Honestly, could be. That sounded a little sarcastic. It might be. I can't rule it out. A better guess, they probably have a little bit of a agreement with law enforcement, right? Like, look, it's out there, but, you know, if my country's law enforcement isn't upset at me, probably pretty safe. Does my country extradite? And if not, why don't we distribute there? Right? So they can get it all over the world. This is also a picture of Emotet, probably. I don't really know. It's not really. Anyway, one of the key features of Emotet, they take time off. All the time. Emotet campaigns will run for 3, maybe 6 months. 6 months even on the long side for them. And they nope out of there. Take the rest of the year off. Maybe they're doing R&D. Maybe they're on an island. Kind of what I think. You just gotta get to your quota and like, all right, take the rest of the year off. All right. We're really starting to see a lot of this. And these guys are sophisticated to the point where they're running the market. Because they're on the market, we're seeing really, really sophisticated supply network. So, Mummy Spider here, is that kind of hard to read? Actually seeing a lot, especially lately. Like I talked about Indirect Spider before. Emotet will often download Dridex. Dridex will sometimes download Tiny POS, which goes after just point-of-sale systems. So if you're going after banking passwords, you want to go after point-of-sale systems, great. Let's get one piece of Emotet out there, and now I can start to carve up and sell it individually based on what the actual target is. Who else is there? Then on the other side, Emotet's downloading BokeBot. It's downloading TrickBot all the time. Emotet downloads TrickBot. TrickBot sometimes downloads Emotet. They're best buddies. Really good pals. And then TrickBot all the time download the right ransomware, which, given the code overlap, and actually seems to like that group is almost certainly a subset of the TrickBot group, right? So we're looking at some pretty complicated business relationships between the people that are operating in this black market. They containerized it. Emotet is all about containerizing the payload and getting it wherever you need it to go. Right? So I mentioned Wizard Spider before. They're best known for TrickBot, which is all out there. And again, sort of tracking what they're doing. They can download Emotet. Emotet can download them. So that when you really start to get into it, and I'm probably running out of time, I have some analysis of the malware. There's some really interesting ways to track them. I've got their macro. I've got their PowerShell. There are definitely some really good threat hunting things you can do if you've got logs. Should be from the endpoint, but we'll come back to that analysis. Yeah, so the macro launches Windward. That calls PowerShell. That calls a downloader. The downloader will launch PowerShell to turn off PowerShell logging. Right? So if you're just collecting logs, you'll catch some stuff. It's better than nothing, but you probably want a better data source than just window event logs, PowerShell logs. They'll shut down Windows Defender, stop the process from running it. We'll see that, and then download the TrickBot, right? So we can actually track like the different variants and things like that, and then you'll see it launch and like it start to get persistent. That's what this PowerShell is doing. So there's really good threat hunting cues there as far as watching for those start sleep commands. That's not something that happens too often. The timeouts. Honestly, if you can segment your user base into like technical, non-technical, honest to God, looking for 2 ampersands on a command shell is going to probably help you find some of these guys, right? It'll show you IT people, but if you can collect all them together and label them as such and move them out, you'll start to pick up advanced attacks just by little things like that, right? If a gym in accounting is suddenly launching PowerShell like this for the first time ever, I'm going to take a second look. checks its IP address. It wants to know where in the world it is. So I don't know if there's legitimate ways in your environment for people to reach out to these. Check IP.Amazon AWS, IPEcho.net. You may have seen some of these before. IPFI.org. There's a bunch of these. ICanHasIP.com. Right? They'll do the same thing. You go to that page, it tells you your IP address. And malware use it all the time to figure out where in the world it is. Yeah, by the way, Wizard Spider, Mommy Spider, total bros. They'll download each other depending on the campaign, depending on who they're targeting, right? It's honestly a really close business relationship. So, want to make the point that the bad guy supply chain is really impressive. You should be impressed about it. And honestly, one of the things I try and get off talks like this is so you can go back to your management and try and explain, like, this is serious. These are professionals, right? We have to, if there's something you learn from any kind of threat intelligence, it should be that we can't talk about malware like it's bacteria. Like, I don't know where it came from. Guess I picked up an infection. I'm going to take some antibiotics and hope for the best. That's not it. These people are coming after you. And if I can tell you, if I can go from bad file, I quarantined it, that's the end of the story, to this is a really sophisticated threat actor. This isn't commodity ransomware. If you saw things from Pinchy Spider, from Indrik Spider, and you block the first round, I'm sorry, you're not done. They're coming back. They're targeting you. We want to be able to identify these things. So if there's a weak link in that chain, and you're only stopping that, you're stopping nothing, right? We saw this complicated relationship between all these malware actors. So if you're getting TrickBot, let's say, well, a lot of times it starts like this. They also run the Gophi, I don't know if I'm saying that right. Gopher, has anyone heard of it? Anyway, spam network to download Emotet, which downloads BokeBot, which downloads TrickBot, which then might download the right ransomware. And then you'll talk to an organization like, don't worry, my EV's got it handled. It's just quarantined BokeBot. So we're on top of it, right? What happens after that? Contrary path. You eliminated one link in the chain, and these guys are working very well together. Right? So we need to know what's going on. It can't just be, oh, it's bad. It's bad. Oh, it's malware, and I blocked it. You have to be able to say, like, well, that type of malware, how does it usually work? What are their TTPs? And should I be on the lookout for, say, their buddies over here in the supply chain? Are they going to come back as soon as I delete the first file? Right? How much time do you have for that? One of the things we've been able to do, because at CrowdStrike we have a shitload of data, right? We're collecting 280 billion events from endpoints every day. It's massive. It's obscene. And a lot of the way we can use that data is start to do a lot of analytics. One of the things we started to track, and this is all in our 2019 Threat Intel report, which you can download off our website. Yes, it asks for your email address. I'm sure you're getting our spam already. No big deal. Go ahead and sign up, right? What we're able to do is actually break out the breakout time by the different types of threat actors. Now, we don't have quite enough data we can get down to a specific threat actor. Well, and some very, like, if they're incredibly prolific. But what we did is lump it up by, say, like different nation states. So we've seen our intel before. If it's a nation state actor, we've been talking all about spiders today, which they're in it for the money. They're a criminal organization. If it is a nation state, they get that country's national animal, right? So here at the very top, with a healthy lead over anyone, the Russian organization, the Bears, they have an average breakout time of just under 19 minutes. It means after they pop their first shell, it takes them average 19 minutes to move laterally. So, if we're not talking just about, oh, I need to stop a malware, no, you want to stop a breach, which is, okay, that's how much time I've got if this is the threat actor I'm worried about, right? But that is like the best of the best out there. We see that drop off pretty quick. Second place is over 2 hours, 2 hours, 20 minutes. And that goes to the Cholima family. What country is that from? North Korea, right? The national animal of North Korea is a magic flying horse. It's totally real. You can read the official government paperwork that explained how the deer leader dug up Cholima bones and maybe wrote it one time. It's anyway, right before he did the 18 holes in one, right? Anyway, this guy's great. You should see his press releases. The Chalima is actually coming pretty hefty after that. It sort of drops out there. Now, I've been talking about the criminal organizations we lump in as all the spiders we were talking about. Their average breakout time, 9 hours and 42 minutes. So they're not immediately moving on objectives. So it kind of becomes, for your organization, who am I worried about, right? What's your threat actor profile? And this is their breakout time. So if you work in an industry that you know is being targeted by the Russian government, you better be able to detect a threat and stop it in 19 minutes. If we're talking about this commodity malware and things, then okay, I've got 9 to 10 hours. Well, that sounds way easier, right? But then we start to focus on that. And of course, we're seeing it drop because they're getting more and more sophisticated, right? We're seeing them develop reputations. We're seeing them build out their own supply chains and specialize. These are pretty advanced economies that they're building for themselves, right? And we should take it seriously. You should be able to tell your management to take it seriously, which, if anything, that's got to be worth having these kind of stats, right? I think maybe you're not into economics as much as I am, but someone in your management chain wants to see some data, and I hope it was helpful for that. So with that, I believe we've got lunch. But any questions, I'll answer now, and I'll be around the rest of the day. Any feedback would help. I have to polish this and corporatize it a whole lot for Black Hat. So any feedback would be great. And